Hey everybody, this is John Fitz from the band JJ Fitz, and this is my testimony video. So I'll jump right in. I grew up in the Jersey City area. It was a bit of a rough neighborhood at the time. There was also a lot of brokenness and drama going on in my own home. So truth be told, I was a very damaged, insecure, and broken young man. By age 12, I started drinking, which I now know was an attempt to cope with my life and my environment. By my later teens, I wound up being in my first rehab. I was there for a long time. I thought that I had, I was good. I was cured. I spent a year and a half pretty much almost in a program. And, what else do I need? I get married, have two kids. I begin to have a prosperous career in IT. I'm playing in a Christian rock band. I'm writing songs by that time. I'm a worship leader at my church, but I had still never addressed any of the things that were going on inside of me, nor did I know that I needed to. So at about age 29 or so, I hurt my back and I wound up going into pain management. I was on pain management for about 6, 7 years, and the medicine levels just kept increasing because my tolerance would build and it wouldn't help me as much. And then I began to use that addictively, and sometimes I'd run out early, and it was just getting kind of out of control. In my mid 30s, I had an episode where I wound up mixing alcohol and the pain pills and some other things, and I wound up cutting myself very severely. So I woke up in a psych ward, didn't even know what happened the night before. My doctor found out, my pain management doctor found out what happened, and as soon as I got out, he told me I can no longer give you pain medicine, and he completely cut me off. At that time, I went into a very serious and instant withdrawal. And a friend of mine who was also in addiction said, "Hey, man, heroin's the exact same thing." And I remember saying, I was like, "You're crazy. There's no way on earth I'll do heroin. I'm a husband, a father, and I'm an executive in New York. I'm a Christian musician. I'm a worship leader at my church. There is no way I would ever do that." Well, fast forward a couple days when I'm withdrawing very severely, I call him and I said, "Hey, man, let's do it. Let's try it." So, unfortunately, that night we went, and that was the first time I used heroin. As you can imagine, that just progressed and got worse and worse to the point where my wife found out about it. And she said, "John, you got to go," which is exactly what happened. And I wound up bouncing house to house, program to program, again, trying to stay sober, can't stay sober, don't know why. It progressed to the point where I wound up homeless on the streets of Paterson, New Jersey for about 2 years. I had lost everything that I cared about. My wife divorced me. I lost my career in IT. I was not even picking up or touching a guitar anymore. As far as I was concerned, it was all over. And I just used more and more and more. At age 39, my nephew, who was in recovery just like me, 21 years old, he relapsed and he didn't make it, unfortunately. So I go to his funeral. I'm standing over his casket. I'm obviously completely devastated. And all of a sudden, I have this moment of extreme clarity, which I now know was a God moment. And a voice just rang in my head that said, "You are going to die." It wasn't like I might die, I could die, I really need to stop or whatever. It was, "You are going to die." And I knew in that moment, I'll never forget it. If I don't stop, I'm going to die. I'm going to leave my kids without a father. That's what's going to happen. So I left that funeral and I reached out to my brother-in-law, Hiro, who's a pastor, but also works in addiction ministry and had helped me throughout the years many, many times. And he got me into a program. It was right there in Patterson. And I went there and I was there about a month. And I planned on staying long term, but while I was there, my roommates started bringing in drugs and using drugs in the facility, and I was terrified. I knew that if I stayed there, I was absolutely going to relapse, and I wanted to be done with this life. So I called my sponsor at the time. He told me about this place in Whiting, New Jersey called America's Keswick. He knew I was a Christian. It was a Christian facility, and he heard great things about it. And he said, "You got to go." So I did. I called my mom. My mom put up the money to get me in. Thank you, Mom. And then I shipped off to America's Keswick. And that's where my life really began to change. So when I first got to Keswick, I was exposed for the first time and maybe forever, to the real gospel, to what the gospel meant, to what Jesus did and how it impacted my everyday life. That just began to change me. I began to see things differently. I began to see myself differently, God differently, people differently. Like things just began to change. And then one day I'm in my group with Dr. Noah Lang, and I'm sharing a couple things. I've been there a couple months, and he said to me, "Have you ever considered trauma counseling?" Now, I had never heard of trauma counseling, but Keswick offered this Christ-centered model of trauma counseling, and I was willing to try anything. So nothing I had ever done worked. So I was like, hey, never did this. I'll give it a shot. So that's exactly what I did. And then I entered into this process, which really was just going into your past, different events that happen, different wounds, and really just processing through them in a healthy environment, a stable environment, and allowing yourself to feel the pain and to grieve. And through that process, my heart began to heal. And I remember realizing that I was healing over time because things would happen, somebody would say something or do something, and I would react differently than I normally would have when I was triggered. And I remember realizing, like, wow, this is actually working. So I stayed in it. I actually wound up staying on as an intern just so I could do it longer. And I processed through everything I could possibly think of. So then I get out of there, I wind up leaving, and what I realized was, because I was no longer in this deep emotional turmoil and pain, I didn't need to medicate anymore. So the desire to just wreck my life and use these different substances had been lifted. And I was a new man, a free man. And during the whole process, from the beginning of trauma counseling until even now, I began to write songs about the journey, and I used it as a way to express. And all of a sudden, I realized I had more than an album worth of songs. So my son, who's also an amazing musician and is a producer and engineer and all that, yeah, we got together, started the band JJ Fitz. We recorded the album Show Me Your Heart, which is on all platforms. And our desire, my desire, is to tell the story of what God has done, how I've healed, how we have healed in this journey, and to use music and testimony as a way to do that. So yeah, you can check us out online, jjfitz.org. Again, Show Me Your Heart is out on all platforms. We just released a video for our new song, It's You, Wounded Frame. You can check that out as well. Thank you so much for listening, and God bless you.
Then face to face, man and God collide. Sin erased, the broken sanctified, to never be denied of your embrace. Come on, sing with us. So it's you. So it's you I'm calling.